been thinking about toxic honesty recently. I've really noticed as of maybe the last few years, and specifically more the last 12 months, that there's been a real increase in celebrities and just people in general getting out there and speaking more freely and not shying away from showing their vulnerabilities and talking about when they're being anxious or sad or elated and all of that kind of stuff, right? And I think it's amazing. I'm so happy that this is finally coming to us all. Better late than never is the first thing I kind of think, I guess. And then second thought that I've been having is when someone has been repressed for a really long time and not being able to be honest with themselves and other people, when they finally do start being more honest, it's like that oversharing, you know. There's like an important defining line when it comes to honesty, and I really feel like it's not always for the best. It can definitely be toxic to share every single thought that is going through your mind. There is a real wisdom that I believe comes from reflection and taking the time to digest and think about what you're going to say before you actually say it. There's a lot of fun that happens when you don't act that way. I'm not actually, haven't scripted anything right now that I'm saying, so I'm having a lot of fun right now, but I think we'll have to go back and edit this and maybe start from the top. I also had a glass of wine. It's Friday night. I'm actually staying in. I'm a loser. But Saturdays are the new Fridays? No, that's not what they say. Thursdays are the new Fridays. Wednesdays are the new Fridays. That's what they say. I think it's Wednesday now, not Thursday. Thursday was like when I was back at uni, and Thursday was the party night. I don't even know why Thursday was the party night, but Thursday was definitely the big party night when all the clubs were open. Anyway, that was a long time ago that I was at uni. Back to toxic honesty. So my background is Eastern European. My accent is probably a bit indistinguishable to a lot of people because I've been living in Berlin now for well over 10, not well over 10 years, but 13 years, which is quite a long time to live somewhere that's not your home. Originally, I was born in Eastern Europe, and then we moved when I was a small child to Australia, and I grew up there. Then I moved back to Europe some time ago, and I was just thinking recently about the Eastern European culture and how the one thing that I feel like Eastern Europeans thrive at is just this direct honesty. Like they don't hold any bars when it comes to telling you what they feel, what they observed, and it's amazing a lot of the time, really, because there's no sort of fucking around. It's very, no, you don't look good in that dress. Or, I remember going into a shop back when I was like 16 or something. The shopkeepers at the time were still smoking inside. That was cool. Anyway, I was like, wow, okay, they're smoking inside. I just came into this shop. They didn't even flinch. They didn't look up. They didn't say hi. They didn't ask me how I'm going. Do I need any help with anything? If anything, they seemed like I was a complete inconvenience to their day, the fact that I was even in there. It honestly terrified me. They terrified me. I want to get out of here. Like, I don't want to make your day any harder. You clearly do not like me. I'm just going to get out. Fast forward to, now, and I think it's amazing. Like, I love this attitude. It's so fucking real, and that's something that I really appreciate about Eastern Europeans is they can be just fucking real. One thing that they don't thrive at is being vulnerable about their inner emotions and, what they're scared about, what they're thinking about, all of that kind of stuff. They're very good at being emotional about, other people, but not so much when it comes to themselves. I think I'll never forget. I was 25, maybe 26, so I wasn't that young, and I was having some troubles with the guy that I was dating at the time, and I was talking to my dad, and my dad was being a good sport, I'd say. He was listening to me, gave me some opinions of his own, until finally, I think it just got to a point where he could not listen to me venting to him anymore, and he just said, maybe he's just not that into you. Is that so hard for you to come to terms with? And It was honestly, I mean, it stayed with me because I still think it was an incredibly brutal thing to say to someone, say to a sensitive young lady as I was. But it's just such a typical example of Eastern European brutal honesty. Another example of a moment with an Eastern European person happened to me the other week. I was at an event and there was some people sitting opposite me, and I was eavesdropping in on their conversation. It was a kind of interesting conversation because this one woman was basically rating another woman on her attractiveness from a scale of 1 to 10 to her face. And they, mind you, they didn't know each other. They were both at this event, but this is definitely the first time that they'd met each other. And I was like really impressed because this other woman was totally up for being rated by this other woman. And I just remember thinking, wow, the woman that's just doing this, rating this girl right now on her attractiveness and giving her reasons why she's giving her a 8.5 out of 10. I just felt this chick is fucking wild. Like, who does that? Who is rating someone on their looks to their face? It's crazy. And then, I don't know, maybe half an hour went by or something, and someone else around us asked her where she's from because of maybe her accent or something, because she had a bit of an accent when she was speaking English. And then she said, I'm from, Croatia. And I was like, oh my God, makes so much sense. There's if you're from Eastern Europe and you're say from Poland, fine, you're Polish. If you're Bulgarian, cool, you're Bulgarian. If you're from Croatia or you're from Serbia, you're the troublemakers. Like, we are, like, these people from Croatia and Serbia are just known as the troublemakers of the Eastern European bunch. Yeah, there's just it was just like a parallel moment of thought of, that's outrageous. This person is literally outrageous. Like, no one would do this. And it, part of that just being like amazing. That's just like, this is so. And then it was because there was something about the way that she was doing it that was weirdly inoffensive, like, it was obviously kind of offensive to any polite person to be rating another person on their attractiveness and their looks, like their physicality. That's completely offensive, and not cool, because we all know the reasons why. But something about how she was doing it was just somehow inoffensive, but I don't know how even. I guess that's the wonder in extreme honesty, I guess. A brilliance, perhaps, almost. But then there's also an aspect of sheer insanity, which is just not brilliant at all. Two sides of the coin, some might say. We'll just leave that there. I want to go back to the toxic honesty trait that I feel like is hitting our shores. Like, what is toxic honesty? Toxic honesty is when you just didn't take the time to really think about whether this was something that was going to hurt somebody else's feelings and should be shared because it is the right time for it to be shared, or whether it's true for anybody else besides you. In my opinion, I am someone who believes in this sort of collective universal consciousness layer. In this layer of universal consciousness, I do believe that there is some level of objective truth to the universe, essentially. Whether the right word is truth, that's probably not the right word, but that there is just a level of things that are, It's like not this or that, it just is. And that could be called truth, just what is. Definitely what can happen when you're speaking from your truth, it's yours, right? It's not everyone's, and it's not the universal truth to things. You are part of the world and other people, sure. So therefore, it can feel like speaking from your truth is valid. And on some level, yes, it's always valid to speak from your own truth, because that's, where else are you going to come from? Like, besides your truth. But this taking pause sometimes before you share your truth is really valuable, I believe, because it can really be damaging what you say. Your words can be damaging to other people. They can create a lot of insecurity and self-doubt in others. And all for what? Like, you didn't mean it. You meant it in the moment, but meaning something in the moment, does that make it okay? Like, it makes it more okay than not meaning something in the moment and saying it. But it definitely doesn't totally dissolve that it's not really completely okay that you said what you did. There's a certain belief that being honest is the righteous way to be, or the right way to be in this moralistic stance, I guess. Getting back to what I was saying before, when there was a huge period of repressed humans that couldn't be vulnerable, and like if you think about the 1950s and how everybody was so prim and proper and everyone needed to look perfect, seem perfect, and there was no space for being vulnerable or weak, nobody wanted to be weak in society. Therefore, you always had to put on this face. And even, like literally women were putting on their face by putting on lots of makeup, doing their hair, sleeping in rollers, all of that kind of stuff. Thankfully, in the 60s and 70s, there was a big revolution where people were like burning their bras and women weren't shaving their armpits and shaving their legs and all of that kind of stuff. And there was a real moment of humanism, just being who we are. So that was like a big step from the 1950s. But the facades culturally within Western society continued into the 80s and the 90s, and this business side of thing, and this like go-getter mentality and fake it until you make it. That's like a huge thing when I was growing up, this like fake it until you make it, which I hated. There wasn't a phrase at the time that I hated more than fake it until you make it, because I felt like all of my anxiety that I had when I was 20, like 18 to 21 or so, came from when I was feeling super anxious inside. I wasn't allowed to show this to anybody. I had to be fine. I had to be like everybody else. And that just was this huge hamster wheel, which made me feel even more anxious and even more anxious. Like, the more that I couldn't just say, I'm so fucking nervous right now and I have no idea why, which honestly, if I could just have said that and felt like okay with saying that, I think it would have made me feel better, like almost instantly. But because there was this fake it until you make it mindset at play, there was no space for just saying those kind of things back then, and yeah, I really started resenting this fake it until you make it mentality. And I think that's the main thing that I've seen that has been changing a little bit, is that people are actually opening up, and even in a job interview, being able to say, sorry, I'm a bit nervous right now, and like laugh it off a little bit. And it's just like showing this human side that is what is connecting people to each other, and breaking down this facade is what's making us all take a breath out. And that's amazing. Like, I'm just so happy. I can't even express how happy I am about this, because that's all I feel like when I was a 19-year-old, I needed a bit more of that, a lot more of that than what I felt like I could have. And that's amazing. But at the same time, what is not amazing is when you like overdo it. You can be like, oh my God, I'm so nervous right now. And then you're like, I'm so nervous right now. And also, I was thinking about how I actually just because in my last interview I said, that's an exaggeration, but like you could just obviously take it a little bit too far. There's like no need for you to tell this person what you did in your last job interview. That was a horrible mistake, That's where I'm getting at with this like toxic honesty. Where is the line that you don't want to cross? Telling someone I'm a bit nervous, cool. Telling someone how you didn't sleep at all last night, you've been feeling guilty because you're about to say yes to another job. Like there's like various levels of like, don't do that. It's not necessary. It doesn't help anyone. You've got this, Yeah, what does it remind me of? What's the first time, something that like when you first start riding a bike and you're like, feel so free, the moment that your parent or whoever was holding onto the bike seat, when they finally let go and you don't even realize, and then you realize and you're like, oh my God, this is like amazing. I feel so free. And you feel free and then you feel free and then you're like, the handlebars start wobbling a little bit and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to like crash and die. That's kind of what this toxic honesty feels like to me. This is another good example in an argument. When you're having an argument with someone and you're like really on a roll, all of the points that are coming out of your mouth are like so on it. They're coming from your heart. They're not just coming from your heart, they're also really aligned with your knowledge and your compassion and all of these kind of things. You know that moment when you should have just stopped talking? We all know it, I think, at some point. You're like, I should have just stopped saying what I was saying about 20 minutes ago, because the more I kept talking, the more I started to undermine my points that I was making, or like not undermine, but sort of water down the points that I clearly had made earlier. That's what toxic honesty is to me. It's understanding when you should shut up and when you've made your point. That's all for today. Thanks so much for listening. Moody Mondays, every Monday with a moody new topic. Love you lots. Until next time.